Now, earlier this week here on BON, we investigated China's black jails. These are unofficial holding centres for petitioners from the countryside who've come to Beijing in the hope of having their cases heard. But even for those who aren't thrown into a jail or escorted forcibly back to their villages, a petitioner's life can still be pretty miserable. Today, BON's Suzi Tart looks at why these desperate people come to Beijing and what their daily life is like when they get here.
Life's not fair. And for the thousands of petitioners who leave their families and travel great distances to Beijing each year, this can be a hard lesson to learn. No one has learned that lesson better than Chen Ziyu. He says his local government took his land.
The authorities told me that if I wanted compensation, they'd use the dirt-digging machines to kill me and give me $4,000 for my body.
With threats like this from his local government, Chen now spends all his time and money traveling to Beijing in hopes that someone, anyone, will be able to help. BON first met Chen last March on his first trip to the city. But as with his previous trips to local offices, it too proved unsuccessful.
Every time I petition, I go home and get put behind bars. I've been in prison twice. They told me I'd be sued and sentenced for a crime if I came to Beijing again.
Local governments often employ undercover means to discourage people from petitioning. That can mean threats, beatings, even detention, the so-called black jails. Chen says living in fear has just become a way of life.
Rumor has it a petitioner was killed on Friday. I didn't see it, so I don't know if it's true. I'm afraid that could happen to me, but eventually everyone will die. So I might as well die petitioning for my own rights.
Even a place to sleep is not guaranteed. We went to interview Chen in a village outside Beijing. He and other petitioners pay 75 cents a night for lodging like this. But when the landowner saw the camera, she kicked us out and told Chen not to come back. Chen didn't seem fazed. In fact, he carries a burlap sack in his bag for such occasions. Chen says at times when petitioning, he's had to sleep underneath a bridge, not too different from this one. It's far from nice, but it beats the shelter of a black jail any day. Like Chen, many petitioners come to Beijing to fight for justice, but sometimes what they find is that they're fighting just to survive. Xu Kerong is also petitioning for land rights. In her case, the real estate developer who took her land is also her son's school principal.
I went to the principal to get my land back. He told me he'd seek revenge. He then took it out on my son and damaged my son's chair so that he had to stand up the entire day at school.
Xu also met with BON in March. She's back to plead her case for a third time.
All I got after petitioning was a sentence of 10 days in prison when I went home. I'm sure I'll be jailed when I return again. But there hasn't been a result yet, and so I have to do it. My family is waiting for me, and there's no other school for my son to attend.
Petitioning like this is a constitutional right, but, according to Beijing lawyer Liu Xiaoyuan, rarely successful.
The percentage of cases that are resolved from the central office in Beijing is extremely low. One official said to me that about 90% of the cases are reasonable petitions and should be resolved, but the number that actually gets resolved is less than 2%.
Desperate and with nowhere else to turn, petitioners risk it all to be part of that small 2%. Beijing doesn't want the petitioners staying here, so it can be hard for them. BON contacted the National Petition Office in Beijing, which refused an interview. For the sake of the petitioners, we decided not to contact the local government bureaus. As social conflict increases, Liu says more and more petitioners are coming to Beijing. But the system is still pretty much the same system that was developed in imperial times 3,000 years ago.
The increase in petitioners has brought a lot of attention to the issue from the central government. Beijing has asked the local governments to pay more attention to their requests, but it has mainly overlooked how petitioners are punished after going back to their hometowns.
And for the petitioners, that means little changes.
Sometimes I have to tell petitioners they might as well quit. Even though the law says they deserve their rights, the legal system is undeveloped and some cases just don't have a fair ending, no matter how long they fight for.
China's longest petition case ended in 2008 after nearly 30 years. Chun has been fighting his case for 6 years.
I have no idea what I'm going to do. I have no land, no source of income, no guarantee of life. My life at home is threatened, and so I'll probably have to move. It's all gone.
Susan Tart, BON.
So a glimpse there into the difficult lives of petitioners here in Beijing. Well, Susan Tart, who put together that report, joins us here in the studio. But before we talk to her, we thought it would be interesting to find out what ordinary Chinese people feel about this issue.
But unless they live in specific parts of the city where petitioners congregate, ordinary Beijingers are unlikely to come in contact with them. And the state media rarely reports on their plight. Just how much does the average Chinese person know of their situation? Well, we went out on the streets of Beijing to ask just that. Here's what they had to say.
As far as I know, the petition system does have some effect, and we really need it. Petitions have helped a lot in settling disputes, but I wish there were a more complete system for complaining, so that people would have a better way, a normal, easy appeal process to defend their rights.
I really don't know a whole lot about petitioners. I don't think it helps in solving problems. People should deal with these through a proper way. If everybody did this, what'd be the point of having the law? I don't support this kind of thing.
It has its pros and cons. On the one hand, it's a symbol of freedom and human rights. On the other, I don't think petitioning is a good way to settle disputes. After all, the government has its own procedures. People should appeal to a higher authority, not go straight to the central government. If everyone did that, it'd be chaos. The government should improve its supervision systems. I can understand their feelings, but I don't support them.
I think they should petition. They have to find a way to solve their problems somehow. Beijing is the capital, so it's more direct to come here. On top of that, most are here because they have a grievance with the local government, so they have to come here for help. I support what they do, but I've heard many of them fail.
I support them. I have sympathy for them. They lead a hard life but earn very little. Some of them are looking for debts to be paid. Some are only asking for justice, but up till now, the success rate isn't promising. Still, they detract from the city's appearance. I think the government should be more supportive and tolerant.
I can't say I support the petitioners. I think they should solve their problems with the local government. Some of them worry too much, so they just come straight to Beijing. I've even heard of some who spend ages petitioning and spending their entire family savings on a case. I think they should work with the local government more. That way, many disputes would be sorted out. They shouldn't resort to such extreme methods.
So, Susan, a surprising number of people there who weren't in favour of the petitioners. Are you at all surprised by their reaction?
I am surprised, and personally I think it's more sad than anything. But these people, they come from rural villages, they don't know anyone in Beijing, and they're kind of kept away from the rest of the city. So people on the street, probably don't have any interaction with them at all on a day-to-day basis.
What reasons did you feel that, why do they see these people as a problem for them?
Well, most of them are poor and they don't have any money, and they're kind of seen as a drain on society. And it was interesting in the village that we went to, even though it was secluded from the city, far away, there was a surprising number of Bao-an and policemen just standing watch there.
You mentioned about them, a lot of them being poor. Of course, some of them are from very, very poor villages, rural areas. How do they afford to cover their costs, for example?
Well, some of them have Good Samaritans who give them money to come petition. A lot of them depend on their family members. But even in that case, they're kind of kept on a leash. I talked to Shu, and she said her husband was being threatened by the local government now and could potentially be fired from his job.
Right, so that would be her source of income cut off in that case. Now, Liu, the lawyer who's helping these people out there, mentioned that only 2% of these cases are even accepted by the petitions office. So, as a lawyer, I mean, if they aren't even being accepted, what can he do to help them?
Well, as he said in the story, sometimes the best thing he can do is just tell them to stop while they're ahead and quit petitioning. But a lot of these people are unaware of the laws regarding petitioning. And so in that case, he can kind of more or less lead them and guide them in the direction to go where they petition rather than petitioning at a police office, so to say.
As basic as that, really, just the very, very simple things, yeah.
I suppose the all-important question, really, is, Susan, is if it's so difficult and they're treated so badly, why did the petitioners persist in coming to Beijing at all?
Well, one thing I think is important to note is that both Chen and Xu said that they support the Communist Party policies, and they believe that Beijing just has an unawareness of the level of corruption going on at the county and local levels.
So it's quite altruistic. They want to highlight corruption.
That's right. That's right.
And they feel that it's just their particular place is bad, but really if people here in the city knew about it, if the government knew about it, they'd sort everything out.
They just want justice to be served.
Thanks very much, Susan.
Thanks, Susan.